Hello, welcome to those of you joining on the recording. And I am just about to hand over to our wonderful facilitator to this evening, nature writer and founder of Peaks of Colour. It is Evie Muir who's joining us for a beautiful session on radical rest. Evie, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's very nice to be back in all the elements land. Hi everyone. Um, Normally when I do these kind of sessions in person, I do like a go around where we can introduce ourselves, but I'm conscious we don't have a huge amount of time and yeah, we're on Zoom, which makes it a little bit difficult and more nervy. So the invitation is while I'm doing my little spiel. If you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, your name, your pronouns, and maybe something you're bringing to the space today. That could be an emotion, a feeling. It could be you're knackered after a long day of work. It could be curiosity, intrigue. Um, I won't ever prescribe it. Whatever you want. So yeah, name and pronouns and something you're bringing to the space today. And while people pop those in the chat, just to say thank you all for joining. I don't know where everyone's coming from. I'm in Sheffield and it's chucking it down. So this is a very nice rainy evening activity. Um, and yeah, I suppose when I was given the brief for the idea of resilience in communities, it kind of sent me down a rabbit hole. And as per my practice, the idea for this session is that I'm going to be exploring it, investigating resilience with you all through a Black feminist, abolitionist, and nature allied lens. So, that can help us dive into, yeah, kind of lives within the Black feminist tradition of building healing presence and imagining futures beyond our present conditions. Um, so yeah, I suppose the invitation is to practice and approach the practice with curiosity and asking questions of ourselves and finding that kind of sweet spot between um, comfort as something that's limiting and discomfort as something that's disorientating. Um, and I suppose in that vein, in terms of kind of comfort and us being able to bring ourselves to the space. I think because of time, we probably won't have time for a break. But that being said, please do what you need within the space to look after yourself and take care of yourself. If you need to have a minute, it's absolutely fine. Um, yeah, take breaks when you need to. Feel free to turn your cameras off. Um, Sit, stand, walk about, move, listen to your bodies. Remember to drink water, get a bite to eat if you need to. Um, and yeah, there will be invitations to contribute. Um, so yeah, only do so if you feel able to. But it would be lovely to hear some of your voices at different points. Okay, so with that being said, um, the first activity, although actually I kind of just want to scroll around the chat for a second and see what everyone's bringing. Bit worn down by a cold. Oh, hope you feel better soon. Yeah, I feel like it's maybe raining across the whole country. Tired, excited energy, um, busyness, a deep need for rest, in another rainy part of the country, um, seeking ideas. Oh, we got another Sheffielder. Hello, welcome. Um, oh, wildflower meadows and birds from a health walk. That sounds lovely. Um, Intrigue, excitement, um, energies on a train journey. That is I'm impressed with anyone who has energy while they're on a train. Thank you for joining us. And some exhaustion, some burnout. So yeah, a mixed bag of emotions and feelings and ways of being. So just to say, I appreciate you all coming as you are. This is the kind of space for that. And I suppose on that note as well, to take only from this space what you need, whatever that might be. Um, so, okay, we'll dive into the first activity, which is going to be an embodiment exercise that will hopefully allow us to arrive in our bodies and in this space, whether we're at home, on a train, in transit, and kind of come together as a group, even though we're all separate. Before I kickstart, I just wanted to introduce the term resilience. Because I suppose while I was researching for this space, I was just so interested in the term and how difficult I find it to define resilience for myself. So, as far as Google's concerned, the definition is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulty or toughness. And then the etymology of that in Latin comes from spring back or recoil. And then the 17th century English origin refers to it as to leap or to somersault, which I found quite interesting. They're quite antithetical to each other, those definitions. And so I'd also like to bring in a quote from Bell Hooks, her book All About Love, that reads, definitions are vital starting points for the imagination. We cannot imagine, cannot come into being. A good definition marks our starting point and lets us know where we want to end up. So that's by Bell Hooks. And the invitation is just to hold these definitions lightly for a moment. And before we start to interrogate them, I'd like to invite everyone to just settle comfortably in your chair. You might want to turn your camera off for this next part. You might want to take your shoes off so you can feel your feet really rooted on the ground, although maybe not on a dirty train coach. Yeah, plant your feet, allow yourself to feel rooted, and pay attention to where your body meets the ground. It might be the soles of your feet, your sit bone, your lower back, base of your spine, your shoulders. And as you breathe, allow your body to sink deeper into the earth through these points. And just to say here that embodiment can be a really uncomfortable and unnerving practice. In the West, we're conditioned to prioritize our brain as the source of all knowledge. And so we're not often used to being in our bodies and connected with the wisdom that they hold. So being able to move and hold through the discomfort will allow us to explore new possibilities and new ways of being. So don't want to push ourselves too much. There are a number of reasons why right now in this moment you can't go there, so to speak. You may be knackered after work, you might be a bit poorly, you might be menstruating, you might have a headache, you might have had a bad night's sleep, you might be on a train. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong ways of experiencing this. And your experience is likely to change day to day, minute to minute. The challenge is to find a balance between discomfort and unsafety. So if you find yourself slipping towards a state of unsafety, one way to come back into the space is to listen to the words as I speak them, connect with my voice and connect with your breath. But feel free to come out at any time you need to. So, returning to your breath, returning to your body, inhaling through the nose and holding, 2, 3, 4, and exhaling through the nose, 2, 3, 4. And again, inhaling through the nose and holding, 2, 3, 4, and exhaling through the mouth and letting out a little sigh. Once again, inhaling through the nose and holding, 2, 3, 4. And next time you inhale, exhale through the mouth, letting out as much noise as you can. As much noise as needs to be released from your body. Everyone's on mute, so we can't hear each other's sounds. And as you sit with your breath, just noticing what parts of your body feel resilient in whichever way that definition sits in your body at this moment. Be it in numerous ways, it could be in ways you haven't been able to identify before. It could be resilience, as in crispy, crunchy, fragile, holding on or holding together. Or resilience as strength, as freedom. It might manifest as aches or pains, or as fluidity and freeness. And just breathe into those sensations and approach them with curiosity and resist the urge to attach a story or explanation to them. Allow the resilience in your body to just be. And so coming back into the space, you might want to wiggle your fingers and toes, flutter your eyelids open. You might want to stretch or yawn, get up from your seat, move around, shake it off. My usual instinct is to dive in and ask everyone what came up for them. But given that it's a writing workshop, I'm not going to do that. So now that we're grounded in the space, hopefully, and in our bodies a little bit, I'm going to introduce the first writing prompt. And the hope is that we're going to be able to let our bodies guide our words. And so, yeah, I mean, I always consider writing itself as an embodied act because we're told so much that it is a brain fueled task. But if you think about your pen in your fingertips connect to your wrist to your forearm to your shoulders to your back and your heart space. When you consider writing like that, it can't be anything but an embodied practice. So feel through the pen and let your body guide you as you write. And with that, the first prompt is going to be resilience, my body defines is. So I'll just pop that in the chat. And the invitation with this prompt is to approach it as a bit of a free writing exercise. So free writing, as I understand it, is a complete unburdening through the written word. So it doesn't matter if you like writing, if writing stresses you out, if you associate writing with school and tests and all that other kind of ickiness. I fully believe that everyone can write and should write. So The idea with the free writing is to let your pen guide you. Try not to take it off the page too much. Don't worry about spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, punctuation. You can always come back and edit yourself later. This isn't the space for it. Just let the words tumble out of you, whether they make sense or not. Um, if you want to write in your local dialect, your um, in multiple different languages, you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to give maybe 4 minutes for this, which might seem like a long time. It might seem like not long enough. And I'll call everyone back into the space. Um, so for the first prompt, resilience my body defines is. Okay, so just finishing your sentence wherever you're at and coming back into the space. And the invitation is if anyone would like to share, you're more than welcome to. And if you'd like to share but don't want to be recorded speaking, then you could always type up what you've written or a part of what you've written or a sentence in the chat. Or if you'd like to share how that was for you, it might have been the first time you've done a free writing exercise or a breathing exercise. Yeah, I'll leave a couple of minutes in case anyone wants to share.
I'm happy to share if that's convenient.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
What interested me as I was doing that was the number of connections and ways in which I didn't follow one theme, but what I was writing then reminded me of something else. And although looking at it, it flows, it makes sense. It reminds me of that's what I notice in the meadow, that being with nature, you are stimulated in so many ways with sight, with sound, with the texture of the grass if you're barefoot walking. And it's a bit like following a labyrinth. You don't know where you're going to end up, but it's fun going.
I love that. I love the idea of resilience being a journey that then you don't know what the destination is going to be. And also, you mentioned about being almost like overstimulated with senses, which I think is quite a literal way. I think I can relate to experience resilience like that. Thank you for sharing. And someone's popped in the chat as well. Thank you, Ollie. Resilience, my body defines, is a dialectic loop of ebb and flow, chiming to the rhythms of work and play. Resilience is non-static, non-linear, or time-bound energy, shaped by demands of everyday life and wider forces affecting our shared earthly home. Oof, that's amazing. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And something about resilience is something that is beyond temporality, non-linear. That really resonates as well. Thank you for sharing. Oh, we've got another one. I'm so bad at just sticking to two. This can be my last one I'll read. So someone's popped in the chat. Resilience, my body defines, is this body that feels pain and continues anyway, continues to run, dance, walk, move, continues to rest, to lie, to sleep, continues freely, unpoliced, unpolished, unrestrained, burdened, unburdened, fluidly clunking, aching, grinding, floating, flowing. Resilience, my body defines, is listening to what I need, finally. Oof. I love the contradictions in all of that and how much a body can hold yeah, and how many contradictions a body can hold, and that we're nuanced and multidimensional, and that actually resilience is being able to hold all those different things at once. Thank you. Okay, we do have a full one I'm going to read. A little one. Resilience, my body defines as hiding the feelings of the fear, the breath, the rise, the falls. Thank you. There's something there about resilience as being invisible and the thing we don't show or that isn't seen, or that goes unseen, and how much we show up every day despite. There's a lot there. Thank you everyone for sharing. I know it's a nerdy thing. And on that, in fact, some people have touched on it already in terms of the icky, difficult, sticky, murky parts of resilience. I kind of wanted to dive into that element of it a little bit more and not shy away from it or run from it. Because I think often when I think of resilience, and particularly resilience in relation to rest, it makes me think of survival and how choosing and survival as a choice, and choosing to wake up each day, choosing to do this work, choosing to find joy and peace amidst so much scarcity and persecution, and that kind of chipping away of all our rights and our basic needs is itself resilience. And so, yeah, I think it's important to name this. And yeah, last year I wrote a book called Radical Rest, and I interviewed over 20 Black and POC queer disabled activists within the UK. And as I was interviewing them, a theme kind of emerged where that was around kind of denial and not acknowledging how difficult their current circumstances were and how much resilience they were holding in terms of being able to show up every day, and how that resilience was impacting their bodies. And so I interviewed someone called Azakel from the Black Trans Foundation, who said, if you don't rest, your body will make you. And so, yeah, I do think there's something in naming the shittiness and everything that we're going through as a way of not hiding from it and not kind of falling and succumbing to that martyrdom and toxic positivity. So we're going to attempt to purge ourselves of all the rubbish and the pain and the heartbreak and the hurt that we may be carrying, that we may be bringing to the space, either unknowingly or knowingly, that might be just kind of lurking behind in the shadows, and it kind of follows us everywhere. So yeah, the idea is to let it out into the open so that our resilience doesn't necessitate our silence. And so to do so, I'd like to bring in a quote from Octavia E. Butler, who wrote a lot of amazing books, but in particular one called Parable of the Sower, which foregrounds my book, Radical Rest, but has also influenced my work with Peaks of Colour over the past few years in a really intimate way. And so there's a quote from that book that says, "There is no end to what this living world will demand of you." And with that in mind, I'd like to introduce the second prompt, which is, "This living world demands of me." And the invitation is to simply list. Although that being said, if you're called to write in any one particular kind of way, it might be as a poem, it might be as a train of thought, it might be as a story, feel free. But as a kind of container, feel free to approach this in a list format, and just list all the things that you're carrying at the moment, that yeah, the roles, the responsibilities, the difficulties, whatever feels heavy and difficult. So this living world demands of me. And I'm going to give 3 minutes for this one. Okay, just finishing your sentence or your line wherever you're at. And coming back into the space. And again, the invitation is to share, either in the chat or with your mic off. It'd be nice to hear your voices, but no pressure. And feel free to share what your list might be, or yeah, how it was to be able to have the time and space to identify a list in that way.
I think I'm a bit annoyed. That's what I've discovered from doing that list.
How so?
So I wrote, this living world demands of me patience, order, control, reasonableness and reason, open understanding, to be unchanged, to hold things. And then I was like, is that me putting it on myself? I guess there's like some reflection, because then I wrote, but also nothing. Because what do we mean by world? Like, I don't think nature doesn't really demand anything, except maybe that we get out of her way. So yeah, so I discovered I was holding some, like, a little bit of anger, I think. Yeah, bit of frustration.
As you were reading it, it almost made me think, if you were to write another list, almost like with the anthonyms of those words. So yeah, if that would reflect how you actually want to be or not, and somewhere between there you could maybe be able to identify which of those states is a choice, or what feels put on you. Thank you for sharing, love.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to go?
I'm gonna have a go.
Thank you. Welcome.
That's okay. This living world demands of me patience but long suffering, kindness, forgiveness, sharing, too much that I don't know or own, time for others to use me for their own good, gratitude, but for what? I have given more than this world has taken from me. Tolerance, control, no freedom. Nothing is wrong with the world, but it's the people who are in the world.
Thank you for sharing. I really felt that. And the line, gratitude, but for what, really landed, and I felt it. Yeah, it almost felt like that could have been, that's a full sentence in itself. Gratitude, but for what? And you could almost replace gratitude with any other number of like emotions or roles and responsibilities. And yeah, how often are we able to ask ourselves, like, but for what? Why? Like, is this feeling warranted or useful? Or who does it serve? And does it serve me?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to the next prompt, which hopefully, now that we've released some of the resilience that holds us in that kind of icky, sticky way, we can look towards the resilience that holds us in the uplifting way and in the grounding way. And I feel like it's important in life-threatening conditions, under genocidal campaigns. And I suppose while I was kind of putting this space together, was considering what it means for us to be resilient during a global crisis, multiple global crises, not putting our heads in the sand, but being connected to the earth whenever and wherever we can as a way to remain steadfast in our respective fights for liberation, in to allow us to remain nourished and nourish each other. And so it reminds me of a quote written by an artist who goes by the name of Lane on Instagram, which reads, "If the bombs feel far away, press your ear to the ground, the whole earth cries for justice." And so I'm conscious that we're online now. And if we had longer, I'd send you off out into the world for half an hour and yeah, find a little green friend in whatever way. But instead, I'm gonna invite you to close your eyes for a moment and remember a species that you've encountered in nature in the past or in the recent present. It could be a river, an oak tree, a daffodil or a tulip, a dandelion growing out of the cracks of the pavement, a monstera that might be sitting in another room, or it could be something that lives in the deep crevices of your imaginations and maybe part real, part fantasy. And we're going to consider how these more than human friends model resilience for us, and what advice they may give us if only we have the space and capacity to listen. And I'll say you don't have to be a botanist or an ecologist or anything sciencey to kind of accurately embody or imagine your chosen species. The more fantastical, the better. And so the prompt is the insert species is speaking, listen. So that might look like the oak tree is speaking, listen. Or the river is speaking, listen. And yeah, try not to get tied up on science and facts. Just see what comes to you. And I'll pop that in the chat. I forgot to say I'm going to give us 5 minutes for this one, so a little bit longer. So 5 minutes is up. So if you want to finish your sentence and come back. And as before, if anyone would like to share, feel free, either in the chat or with your mic off. And I'd be curious to know if this task came easier than the previous one. Oh, we've got someone in the chat. The pond is speaking. Listen. Hear the rain as it dances and drums, sending ripples throughout. Listen, the splash of a duck feeding, the bubbles as the ripples hit the shore. Listen, listen to the stillness at sunset. Listen at nightfall. What do you hear? The lapping of foxes, the call of the birds. Listen, be still, and listen. Well, there's something of it being ended on a cliffhanger. I want to know more. Thank you. The water redstart is speaking. Listen with your eyes, tune with it as it dances in the air like a feathered deep ocean blue acrobat. Listen for its soothing call. listen to its aura, admiring its humbleness and allure. Mm. And thinking of how these translate to resilience as a form of just being and being in the moment and basking in everything that's in the present rather than feeling trapped in the past or anxious about the future. The rain is speaking, pump full raindrops. Mm. Do you know, I've been doing these prompts as well whilst you've been writing, and in a different sense, I was writing about my cat. She's a black cat, and also ended up writing about being full. I suppose my cat's always really hungry, but yeah, from full tummies and what that offers.
I'm happy to share something.
Thank you.
I wrote about an oak tree that I pass on a daily walk. The oak tree is speaking, listen, slow down, breathe, feel, root, ground, home, heal, hurt, be, grow slowly, drop what is not needed, create precious protected acorns. In mastures there may be many, in others few. It's okay.
I love that permission at the end. It's really lovely. And it made me think your line grow slowly and many and few. Just how like many decades, centuries, an oak tree grows for and presides over us for and everything they'll have seen and heard and witnessed. There's definitely something there about resilience. They'll have seen a lot. Thank you. Frankie, you had a conversation with a caterpillar. I'd love to hear the hard truths the caterpillar gave, but no pressure to share. Did you get a telling off?
I did, yeah. As soon as you started talking, I thought about a caterpillar that I found in my living room a few years ago and ended up like taking back and putting out outdoors. And the caterpillar told me not to forget about myself and told me that the reason I hadn't visited it was not because I'd not looked after it, but because I wasn't looking after myself, which is some pretty hard truths from a caterpillar.
Brutal.
Mm.
I would say, but also maybe very needed and exactly what you needed to hear
And
from yourself / caterpillar.
I did tell the caterpillar it was a bit harsh, and the caterpillar replied and said, "Is it as harsh as forgetting me and leaving me in Tupperware for a week?" So, you know,
Yeah, fair.
fair enough.
Fair. We love a frank caterpillar. It doesn't mince their words. It's what we like. Ooh, the chat's popping off. The puffball is speaking. Watch with your breath held. It waits quietly by the forest floor, then releases a soft cloud when touched, like a smoky sigh or a ghostly smoke ring. Mm. We had a Peaks of Colour foraging session a few years ago, and we all got obsessed with puffballs. And also that is how it spreads its spores and yeah, continues life. So I feel like there's something in that of being soft and cloudy and regenerative all at the same time. Okay, we've got a long one. I'm going to try my best to read it and scroll. Okay, and also pronounce it right. Correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Dracana. Okay, I'm going to go with Dracana. Dracana is speaking. She stretches lazily. She's come to me from friends. She once lived in my friend's flat and has already moved home once before. Each time it was because someone's visa ran out and they had to leave the UK. Through twists and turns, she finally made her way to my flat. Now she sits quietly in the corner of the living room in a calm and generous patch of light. On sunny days, her leaves catch the sun on their edges, glowing with a soft purplish red sheen, vivid, thriving. Sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear the gentle popping sounds as she grows, segment by segment. It sounds a bit like bamboo. When she's thirsty, she droops, her leaves drawing inwards, and she lets out a faint, weary sigh. So I was reading, I was just realizing how much I'm like a Dracana, if that is how you pronounce it. Just need a quiet, cozy corner in the sun and to be fed and watered. But also similar to the oak tree of how much she's witnessed and maybe how much loss she's holding with every person who passes through and leaves. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So, if there's no one else who'd like to take their mic off, I'm going to move on to our final prompt, actually, of the session. And the idea is, or the hope is, that we'll be able to create a collective poem that reminds us that we don't need to be alone in our pursuit for rest and restful futures, and that resilient doesn't necessitate our isolation. And to ground us, I'd like to share a prompt from Alexis Pauline Gumb's book, Dub, Finding Ceremony. I actually have it here. This looks like this. And in it, she channels the voices of her ancestors, including whales and coral, as a form of storytelling. So very much like what we've just done in the previous prompt, she channels that kind of connection and communication with mammals who she understands as being her kin, and her kin through the underwater ties that link slavery and oppression. So it's a really beautiful book, and she's written some more like it that have a really beautiful exploration of life and living. And so the quote I'd like to share, or the piece I'd like to share, reads, "Sunrise, full moon, heat. They turned their heads towards the east for other reasons, more than just opposition. And it didn't take Garvey to tell them. It didn't take a mystic to understand why having your back to the treacherous West took practice and bravery, how not falling apart every day was meditation, or how else did they show up clear and smiling after their dignity was boot trampled on the hour. They turned their hearts towards heat, full moon, sunrise." And yeah, I really love the line that reads, "Not falling apart every day was meditation," which really speaks to resilience. I feel like I could have made a whole prompt around that alone. Every line of this could have been a prompt in itself, really. But I chose to dive a little bit deeper into that determination to turn our hearts towards what we aspire, as opposed to what we're running from. And in Radical Rest, I write about the different postures of rest that our bodies can inhabit. and how those postures are often fueled by and informed by the different emotions and embodied states that we're holding. So I really love this suggestion of a heart-led posture. I'm quite glad that we've got time because I didn't know if we would, but yeah, I'm maybe gonna just add an extra little bit to this prompt and just invite you all to experiment with for a second on what a heart-led posture actually feels like or looks like or moves through your body like. Can be cameras on or off. But yeah, just take a moment to experiment with what it feels like to let your heart move you. Maybe notice what other parts of your body must move with it. I find that when my heart goes forward, my head instinctively wants to flop backwards. And recently, I've had a lot of jaw ache and neck ache, and it just feels like my head's so heavy all the time with thoughts. So there's something in there. Your heart, moving heart led, allows your head to chill a little bit and flop. And also my shoulders, ooh, they are cracking. Pop, pop. Okay, so from this heart-led posture, the invitation is to just write one line, starting with, we turn our head towards. I say one line. If you're like me, you might end up writing a few, but the idea is we're then going to share our one line and create a collective poem from that. So I don't know how long to give. Maybe I'll just give 2 minutes and just let the instinct move through instinct, be heart-led, whatever comes to you first. Okay, so I've got a hungry cat who's coming to join us and meow in the background. Okay, so there's, how many of us is there? 15. So I'm going to invite us all, and maybe we just need a minute if people want to change their names and have aliases to read out our lines, but in a bit of a popcorn fashion. I won't call upon anyone in particular. This is a bit of a experiment, really. Let's see how this goes. And so the idea is we'll all have a line each, which means we should have a 15-line poem, collective poem. So yeah, I'll give people a minute who may want to change their names for the recording. And you don't have to put your camera on for this either. And would anyone like to volunteer to go first?
I will.
Thank you, love. Okay. The floor is yours.
We turn our hearts towards full-bodied, full-spirited nourishment, rich and delicious, nourishment for our minds, our souls, our bellies.
We turn our heads towards the sun, the glorious fireball that glows and feeds the soil and soul of those who yearn for a brighter future.
We turn towards the growth, the stretch, seeking the raise to find sustenance, nourishment, and encouragement for limitless possibilities.
We turn towards all of it, all of it, all of it.
We turn our hearts together in openness, acceptance, and gratitude.
We turn towards deep listening over time, to what's important, to what is calling unceasingly.
We turn towards the messy, the slow and breathing corners of the planet.
Wherever, in solidarity with fellow kin, chiming with rhythmic vibes and humbleness.
We turn our hearts towards joy on limitless possibilities and a hope for a brighter future.
We turn our heads towards each other, offering, sharing, learning, bringing, giving, receiving.
We turn towards Mother Ocean as she holds the swell and guides us home.
We turn towards those who need us most, those who can't do it for themselves. We turn because we can and we should.
We turn towards safety, home, community, and belonging.
And I think, if my calculations are correct, that might just leave me free to shout up. And mine is, we turn our heart towards death and we embrace our beloveds and remember this is worth fighting for. So I think that means we've made a collective poem together. Thank you, everyone, for taking part and for being brave and speaking your line out loud. I wonder if it would also be nice, Frankie, are we keeping the chat? I feel like we've got a lot of lovely pieces from people. I don't know if there's a way you want to use them in any way or share them anonymously or people consent to that, but maybe we could also put we turn towards the lines in there as well, so they're there if ever we need a reminder.
Yeah, so I'll get a copy of the chat transcript, but at the start I did say that I wouldn't share it. So let me look what's in there, and if there's stuff that we want to share, I can drop people an email and just check back in and ask and make sure that everyone's happy to have it shared.
That's absolutely fine. So maybe we can pop our one-liners into the chat. I'm going to do mine as well, which means I can't talk and type at the same time. Bear with me. And so I know, thank you everyone for popping those in. Look at our collective poem popping up in real time. It's very cute. And so me and Frankie were worried that we wouldn't have enough time and that we'd go over, and we were talking about how to kind of condense things and overlap things. But I think we should have time to do the very final little closing, which, if you cast your mind back to over an hour ago, I asked you all to share one thing you're bringing to the space. And so to close, the invitation is for you to share one thing that you're leaving with. And again, that can be in the chat, or it can be with your mic off, now that we've all had a go at being brave and sharing. We've got joy, courage, warmth, which is very nice because we all came in a bit soggy and rainy. Clarity, calm, belong, soothingness, if that's a word. I'm putting mine in now too, which is smiliness, which I also don't think is a word. Big fan of making up our own words. Connectedness. Leaving unburdened. Travis, that's huge. And I thank you for that, for sharing that and for bringing yourself to the space. Inspiration. Thank you, everyone. I very much, feelings of being relational beings. That's a yummy one. And yeah, that was the hope and the intention, that we'd leave being a bit more connected with our bodies, with the earth, despite being on Zoom, and with each other as a community, despite being on Zoom, and as a local and global community, where our resilience connects us to more than just us, nourished. So yeah, just to say thank you all for joining and being open and brave and curious. I know writing as a practice itself can be quite an overwhelming one for people. So that in itself is a lot. Never mind writing about our deepest, darkest, dirtiest thoughts and feelings, and allowing them to come up to the surface and move through us and move us in our various different actions and purposes. So I really appreciate you all joining me on this rainy evening. And yeah, just a lot of gratitude for you all. Thank you.
Evie, thank you so much. It has been so lovely to have you with us. What an absolutely beautiful session. I've taken away so much from it, and it's been so lovely to hear other people's reflections and all the things that other people have been taking away from the space. So thank you so much for all the work that you've put into developing it and for holding space for us this evening.
Thanks for having me. Anything for you guys.